They told her the room was empty. That was the whole point. The realtor, this super slick guy in a cheap suit, opened the door with a big smile. He was like, "See? A blank canvas." And it was. The room was totally plain. There was no furniture, there were no vents in the walls, no air was coming in or out. The wallpaper was this old, faded yellow pattern peeling at the edges. You could see dust floating in the single beam of light coming from the one window. It was just a box, a quiet, still box. She smiled back at him, a fake one. She just wanted him to leave. She let him go, listening to his footsteps echo down the long hallway. He closed the front door behind him, and the click was super loud in the silence. Then, nothing. She was alone. The whole house was old and quiet. She figured she'd hear some creaks. Maybe the floorboards would groan. She totally expected small, normal house noises. What she did not expect, what she was not ready for, was a breath. A breath. A breath that wasn't hers. She stood in the middle of the room for a long time, just listening. The world outside seemed to disappear. It was just her and the four walls. The silence was so deep it felt like you could touch it. She took a slow step, and the floorboard under her foot made a soft groan. It was a friendly sound, a predictable sound. She walked the perimeter of the room, her fingers brushing against the old dry wallpaper. It felt like old paper, brittle and fragile. She was trying to get a feel for the place. She wanted this space. She needed this quiet. She had come here specifically to be alone, to think, to escape the noise of her life. The realtor had promised her total silence and escape from the city. He said this old house at the edge of town was forgotten. She pulled out her phone, checking for service. One bar, barely there, perfect. She sat down on the bare, dusty floor, leaning her back against the wall. The light from the window was getting low. The room was getting dimmer. At first it was so soft she almost missed it. It was like the tiniest puff of air. A slow inhale. A really soft exhale. It was so quiet she thought it was just the wind outside. Maybe her own breathing echoing weirdly.
She heard it behind the wall she was leaning against. She laughed to herself, a small nervous sound. "Old houses make strange sounds," she whispered.
She went back to the wall and tugged at loose wallpaper. It didn't move. A crack. Anything. There was nothing. The wall was solid. She sat back down on the bare floor, same spot. The light was lower now, casting long, spooky shadows across the floorboards. Her phone was still in her hand. An idea popped into her head. She opened the voice recorder app. She wanted to catch the little noises. If she could record it, she could prove to the realtor the house wasn't as quiet as he said, maybe get a discount. She pressed the red button and set the phone on the floor. The little timer started counting up, 0001, 0002. The room was quiet again for a minute. She started to think maybe she had imagined it, that she was just tired and her mind was playing tricks on her. But then it came back. The breathing didn't stop. It started to grow louder. Not by a lot, but just enough for her to know it was real. It grew closer. It definitely wasn't coming from outside the door. It was inside the walls. It was like someone was standing on the other side of the plaster, just breathing. Her heart started to beat a little faster. This wasn't a creak. This wasn't the house settling. This was something else, something alive. And it was right there with her. She had to know. She couldn't just sit there. She scrambled to her feet. She pressed her ear right against the drywall. The plaster was cold against her skin. Her own heartbeat was thumping in her ear, loud and fast. but underneath it the sound was there. It was so much clearer now. It wasn't soft anymore. It was ragged. It was sharp. Like a person who had just run a marathon and couldn't catch their breath. A wet, desperate sound. It made the hairs on her arms stand up. It felt way too close.
Hello?
It got swallowed by the big empty room. The room did not answer, but the breathing did. It slowed down, then it paused. The silence that followed was terrifying, heavy, full of anticipation. For what felt like an eternity, she heard nothing but the blood rushing in her ears. She held her own breath, waiting, frozen against the wall, listening with every part of her being. She wished she had never spoken. Then a whisper came back. Not from the hallway, not from outside. Right there, inside the wall, whispering into her ear. The voice was soft and raspy.
Don't breathe too loud. It hears you too.
She snatched her head back like she'd been burned. Her whole body went cold. It wasn't just breathing. Someone or something was in there, and it had just talked to her. Her hands started to shake uncontrollably. Then another sound, a new one. Something moved under the floorboards beneath her feet. It wasn't a creak, it was a scratching, skittering sound, like claws on old wood, like thousands of tiny feet. The sound started to circle the room, moving under the floor, and the breathing wasn't just in the wall anymore. It was moving too. It sounded like it was walking right behind the plaster, following the scratching under the floor. It was no longer in one spot. It was everywhere. It was hunting. She tried to calm herself down. She actually let out a laugh, but it came out broken and weird, like a sob. She couldn't tell if she was trying to be brave or if she was just losing her mind. The sound came up from below. It was deeper now, a bass rumble that she could feel in her bones. It was this horrible guttural sound, sucking air in and then letting it out like a huge, tired animal.
Please stop breathing.
The words were barely audible. The scratching stopped. The breathing paused. The house was listening to her again.
Be quiet. It likes noise.
Just then she felt a cold draft on the back of her neck. She whipped her head around, her heart jumping into her throat. The door was still closed. No one was standing there. The window was sealed shut. The house suddenly felt so small, like the walls were closing in on her. She was trapped in here with it. She scrambled away from the floor and sat with her back to the door, hugging her knees to her chest. Her phone was still recording everything. She clutched it like a lifeline. She wanted the sound to prove she wasn't just imagining things. The breathing started again, but now it was changing. Slow and deep, then fast and shallow. It moved from the wall to the floor to the other wall. It was always near. It sounded like it was circling her, following her every tiny movement. Night fell completely and the room went dark. Morning came, but not for her. Inside the house, time didn't seem to matter. The room stayed dark. Cold. The realtor came back the next day, right on schedule. He found the front door unlocked, slightly ajar. He called her name. Only the echo answered. The door to the empty room was wide open. The room was just as he had left it. Empty. Her phone lay screen down in the middle of the floor. The screen was dim, battery almost dead. The voice recorder app was open. The file was over 7 hours long. He pressed play. At first, just silence, then her voice. Sobbing, whispering, begging the breath to stop, he skipped to the very end, a long pause. Her sobbing had stopped. Her whispers were gone, only the sound of the room. Then, one last inhale, not like the others. Different. Incredibly close to the phone's microphone. Loud, sharp, clear. A deep final breath filled the recording and for a second filled the room. A hungry sound, a satisfied sound. After that awful inhale, silence. The recording ended.